the BalKony Chillz Podcast.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this? Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something pretty different today, something a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be looking at the Nigerian music scene, but not like the fun stuff everyone loves.
Yeah.
The darker side of it all.
That's the stuff nobody really talks about.
Exactly like when you're listening to Afro beats. You don't think about, all the stuff that could be going on behind the music.
Yeah, it's easy to just get caught up in the vibe.
Totally.
Yeah.
And our main source for this is this YouTube video called The Dark Side of Nigeria's Music Industry, Exposed by Mohbad Death.
Oh, wow.
And it's from a channel called Story Village.
Okay, I've heard of them.
Yeah, they do a lot of these like investigative deep dives.
Yeah.
And this one is, well, it's heavy.
Sounds like it.
But it's super important, especially if you're, like a young artist trying to make it in the industry.
Absolutely. Like, you need to know what you might be getting into.
That's the thing, right? Like, the video makes this point about the contrast between the image and the reality.
Oh, totally. On one hand, you have this global phenomenon.
Right.
Afrobeats blowing up everywhere.
So positive, so joyful.
It's brought so much attention to Nigeria.
Totally. But then you have this whole other side.
Where it gets dark.
Yeah, this video is alleging that there's this underbelly of exploitation, even danger.
It's like anything that involves a ton of money and fame.
Right, there's going to be that element.
Well, always.
And the video really digs into this whole idea of the price of success.
Oh, interesting.
So you have all these young artists, right? Many of them coming from poverty.
Yeah, makes sense.
And suddenly they're presented with this opportunity.
The dream.
Record deals, fame, wealth. It's like life-changing.
I can only imagine.
And they specifically talk about these 4 big labels in Nigeria: Marvin Records,
Okay.
YBNL Records, DMW, and then there's this one that keeps coming up,
Which one?
Marlian Records.
Oh, right.
And they seem to be at the center of a lot of the controversy. So the video's claiming that once these artists sign with certain labels,
Okay.
things can get real.
Like, not what they expected.
Yeah, way different from the dream they were sold.
Wow.
There are allegations of pressure to join secret societies.
What?
Yeah, like actual secret societies.
That's wild.
And then there are demands to perform these controversial stunts for publicity. And even like threats of leaking personal info, like sex tapes.
Oh, God, it's all
It's like they're trying to control every aspect of these artists' lives.
so manipulative.
It's crazy, right? Like, these artists are lured in with the promise of a better life. But then, according to this video, they're trapped.
In the system.
Yeah, facing all these pressures and demands they never saw coming.
And when you're young, you don't always think about those things.
Exactly. You're just excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, it's easy to get blinded by the glitz and glam.
Totally. And this is where the story of Mohbad comes in.
Oh, right, the artist who died.
Yeah, his death kind of sparked this whole video.
I remember that.
And the video suggests that he was crying out for help.
Like before he died.
Yeah, he was alleging all this mistreatment and intimidation.
But nobody listened.
That's what the video claims, that his pleas were totally ignored.
Yeah, that's so sad.
And it raises all these questions about, the responsibility of these labels.
Like, are they actually protecting their artists?
Right, it's not just about the music, it's about these people's lives.
It's a human thing.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, what happens when an artist tries to leave a bad situation?
Yeah, can they just walk away?
Well, the video talks about this thing called blacklisting.
Blacklisting?
And it sounds terrifying.
Like, what does that even mean?
Basically being shut out of the entire industry.
What?
No radio play, no performances.
Seriously?
Yeah, they even say that some artists are blocked from using their own stage names.
No way, that's messed up.
Imagine you build this whole career.
You have fans, you have momentum.
And then it's all gone.
Just because you wanted.
Exactly. And they mentioned some pretty big names in the video, like Cynthia Morgan.
I remember her.
Karidi Bello, Lil Keshkiz Daniel.
Wow, all big names.
And they all allegedly face this kind of backlash after trying to leave their labels.
It's like they have no power.
And you have to remember, this is Nigeria.
Yeah.
Where the music industry is a major source of income.
Right.
So being blacklisted isn't just a career setback.
It could ruin your life.
Totally.
Wow.
And of course, the video keeps bringing up Mohbad in relation to this.
Yeah.
They're alleging that he was specifically targeted and tormented by Marlian Records after he tried to leave.
Oh, man.
It's a lot to take on, right?
That's intense.
And it's important to remember, these are allegations.
Right.
We're relying on this one video for information.
Yeah.
But even if we take it with a grain of salt, it raises some huge questions about power in the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
You have these massive labels with so much influence.
Tons of money connects.
And then you have these young, often vulnerable artists.
Just trying to make it.
Trying to survive.
Right.
And the potential for exploitation is just enormous.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
It feels almost like a David and Goliath situation.
Except David doesn't have a slingshot.
Exactly.
And it's even more complicated because the video is saying this power dynamic, it goes way beyond the big labels.
Oh, like how so?
Well, they talk about this concept of thuggery and cultism.
Thuggery.
Yeah, basically violence and intimidation.
Outside the labels.
Right, like a whole underbelly of this stuff being used to control artists.
Wow.
It gets pretty dark.
Yeah, they tell some seriously disturbing stories about DJ Chicken and Portable.
I think I heard something about that.
They were apparently publicly beaten and humiliated.
Oh my God.
It's not just contracts and negotiations, it's actual violence.
To keep artists in line.
It's scary stuff.
It makes you think about the whole music scene differently.
Totally.
Like under the surface.
Right, even with something as glamorous as music.
Yeah.
You can still have these dangerous elements.
Absolutely, especially in a place where poverty is so widespread.
Yeah, and the desire for fame and money is so strong.
It creates this environment where people will do anything to get ahead.
Exploit anyone.
It's sad.
Yeah, and then the video throws in this whole other layer.
What's that?
Drugs and politics.
Oh no.
They're alleging connections between the music industry, drug trafficking,
wow,
and even high-ranking politicians.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they even mention names. Naira Marley, the head of Marleyan Records.
Right.
E-Money from 5 Star Music.
Okay.
Both allegedly linked to drug activities.
Wow.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then they drop this bombshell about Nigeria's current president,
No way.
Bola Tinubu, implying that he might be involved as a supplier.
Whoa, hold on.
No, right? That's a huge accusation.
Huge, and we have to be careful with this kind of info.
Totally, we need more evidence.
But it just shows how deep this rabbit hole goes.
And how dangerous. Exactly. And even if we step back from those specific allegations, it's obvious that we're dealing with a system where young, hopeful artists can be really vulnerable to all kinds of exploitation.
It makes you wonder how much of this is hidden.
Right, like just under the surface of what we see as fans.
Like what we hear on the radio.
It's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, it is.
To think about how much darkness
could be behind the music we love.
It makes you think.
What stands out to you so far?
You know, I think for me, it's just realizing that something as beautiful and joyful as music can be tied to something so dark.
It's a weird juxtaposition.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about our responsibility as consumers.
Oh, interesting.
Like as fans of the music, to be aware of what's happening.
Yeah, and to support artists who are being treated fairly.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. We're going to dive way deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have a lot more to unpack.
We'll talk about the consequences of all of this.
Right, for the artists and for society as a whole.
So stick around.
It's going to get even more interesting.
Trust me. It's kind of crazy how this video connects the music industry to poverty in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Like you have all these young people in a country with so much economic hardship.
Right.
And the music industry offers them this way out.
A chance at a better life.
Fame, fortune, a way to lift themselves and their families out of poverty.
It's a powerful motivator for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But like we talked about,
that
desperation can also make them super vulnerable.
To exploitation.
Exactly.
Like they're so eager for this opportunity that they might overlook some major red flags.
And it's not just about individual bad actors either.
Right.
This video suggests there are systemic problems.
Oh, yeah.
Like with corruption.
Within the industry.
Within the industry and maybe even the government.
Oh, wow.
Remember all those alleged ties to drug trafficking and officials?
Yeah, that was wild.
It's like this whole web of influence.
That goes way beyond music.
And it makes you wonder if the success of Nigerian music,
like Afrobeats blowing up, could be masking some serious issues.
like a dark underbelly.
Yeah. It's a scary thought.
It's like we're all caught up in the excitement.
The music is amazing.
It is, but we can't forget about the potential human cost.
The artists who might be suffering.
Exactly.
And speaking out against the system.
Yeah.
Apparently comes with some serious consequences.
According to the video.
Right. They talk about blacklisting. But they also suggest that things can get even worse.
Like beyond career sabotage.
Yeah, they use this term thuggery
Thuggery.
to describe this culture of violence and intimidation.
Oh, wow.
that exist outside the labels.
So not just the big companies.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a whole other level of control.
And they give specific examples of how this thuggery plays out.
Like with DJ Chicken and Portable?
Right.
Those stories were intense.
Public beatings, humiliation.
It's crazy we're not talking about contracts and lawsuits.
No.
We're talking about physical violence.
To punish artists.
It's a whole other level of danger.
Definitely. And I think it's important to understand the cultural context here.
What do you mean?
Well, the video mentions cultism along with thuggery.
Cultism, like secret societies.
Yeah, and those have a long and complicated history in Nigeria.
I don't know much about that.
It's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But basically, they often operate in the shadows,
Okay.
using their influence and networks for different purposes.
Some good, some bad, I imagine.
Right.
So how does this tie into the music industry?
Well, the video is alleging that some of these groups
Right.
have actually infiltrated the industry,
Whoa.
using their power to control artists.
To extort money and silence anyone who speaks out.
Exactly. It's like the music industry, with all its money and fame,
Yeah.
has become a target.
For these shadowy organizations.
Makes sense.
So it's not just about individual artists being exploited.
Right.
It's about this whole network of people
Operating behind the scenes.
using intimidation and violence to get what they want.
And it makes you wonder about the level of impunity.
Yeah, like, do they ever face consequences?
The video suggests maybe not.
It's pretty disturbing.
It paints a very bleak picture.
And what about the artists who do become successful?
Hey, are they safe?
Like, are they immune to this stuff?
The video actually uses Cynthia Morgan as an example.
Oh, wow.
She was huge,
Yeah.
but then she just disappeared.
Right.
And later she claimed that she was blacklisted
After a dispute with her label?
and even prevented from using her own stage name.
So even at the top, you're still vulnerable.
But it's like you're never really free.
Yeah. And then there's Mobad.
Right.
His story is just tragic
A reminder of what can happen
when you speak out.
against the system.
Such a talented artist.
Gone too soon.
It's heartbreaking.
It really highlights the importance of protecting artists.
Their rights, their safety.
Everything.
This whole deep dive has been pretty intense.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It makes you wonder if it's even possible
For an artist to make it.
without compromising their values or risking their safety.
That's a great question, and one that we'll definitely address
Okay, good.
in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm actually kind of curious to hear.
We'll explore some potential solutions
Okay.
and talk about what we as fans can do
To make things better.
to create a more just and equitable industry.
So, we've covered a lot of ground here, some pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Exploitation, intimidation, even possible connections to organized crime.
It's a lot.
And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is there any hope for young artists? Like, can you actually make it in this industry
Right.
without getting caught up in all this darkness?
It's the big question, isn't it?
It is, and I'm curious, like, what does the video say about that?
Well, the good news is
Okay.
it's not all doom and gloom.
So there's some hope.
They do acknowledge that there are ethical players out there.
Okay, so good guys do exist.
Exactly. Labels and individuals who are genuinely committed to,
To doing things the right way.
yeah, to nurturing talent, to operating with integrity.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
How do you tell the good guys from the bad guys?
That's the tricky part.
Especially when you're starting out.
Right. You're just so excited for any opportunity.
You just want to sign that contract.
Exactly.
So what can artists do to protect themselves?
Well, the video offers some practical advice.
Okay, I'm listening.
And it all comes down to being informed,
Okay.
being cautious,
Mm-hmm.
and not being afraid to ask questions.
Like what kind of questions?
Well, first and foremost, read your contracts.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like, really read them.
Not just skim through it.
No, understand what you're
And
signing.
what rights you're giving up.
Exactly what obligations you're agreeing to.
Okay.
And if something seems unclear or unfair,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to push back.
To negotiate
To walk away.
if it doesn't feel right.
Absolutely.
Easier said than done, though, right? I know, it's tough.
Especially when you're young and you have this big opportunity in front of you.
The excitement can cloud your judgment.
Totally. And I guess that's where having a good support system comes in.
100%.
Like having people you trust who can guide you.
A lawyer, a manager.
Artists.
People who've been there.
Yeah, they can help you avoid those pitfalls.
They can advocate for you.
Okay, so that's on an individual level.
Right.
But what about the bigger picture?
The systemic issues.
Like the corruption, the lack of accountability.
that the video talks about.
Can that be fixed?
It's a lot harder, but not impossible.
What needs to happen?
Well, I think we need stronger regulations.
Like better laws to protect artists.
Exactly. And we need to make sure those laws are actually enforced.
So holding people accountable.
Individuals, institutions, even government officials.
If they're involved.
It has to be a top-down approach.
But it's not just about laws, right?
No.
There's also the power of collective action.
That's like artists coming together to support each other.
To unionize, to speak out against injustice.
There's power in numbers.
Absolutely. A unified front can make a real difference.
So it's not just on the artists.
Right.
We as fans have a role to play too.
We do.
Like how?
Well, we can choose to support artists and labels that we know are ethical.
Okay.
Do our research.
Find out how they operate, how they treat their artists.
And use our voices to speak out against exploitation.
Demand accountability.
And support organizations that are fighting for artists' rights.
It's about being conscious consumers.
And conscious citizens.
I like that.
Our choices can make a real difference.
This deep dive has been a wild ride.
It has.
We went to some pretty dark places.
We did.
But it's not all bad news.
No.
There are things we can do to make the industry better.
To protect artists, to create a more just system.
It's going to be a challenge.
But I think it's a challenge worth taking on.
Yeah, I agree.
And if this kind of exploitation can happen in music, a global industry full of creative people.
It makes you wonder.
What's happening in other industries?
All over the world.
It's a question worth asking.
And a responsibility we all share.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time for another exploration of the world around us.